So Rahul, we've covered heart rate monitoring as a high performance habit for this month, and we've looked at resting heart rate variability, applications of heart rate monitoring on the field or when you are resting in terms of your nutrition, the mental aspect, injury prevention. So there's a lot going on even now as we speak with respect to heart rate monitoring and new gadgets and devices, which we've also covered. So as a summary, as an overview for our athletes, what is it that we would like to tell them? What are the absolutely necessary uses of heart rate monitor? One, which are easy to use in their daily life, and secondly, what could they look forward to? Third thing would be, is heart rate monitoring alone something which is reliable, or does it need to be done in conjunction with others?
I think the application in sport is very high. To begin with, even if you have your junior athletes, young athletes, LT, AD athletes, inculcate the habit of checking their resting heart rate, even if it's manually, if not on a smartphone. It's a good habit to inculcate, because that's going to help them later on in building these routines of checking their recovery status before they get into practice or get into their training.
It certainly would be a good habit for youngsters to start with, because any major spike, even if it is, let's say, not a 20% over baseline, but something like a 30-40% over a baseline, is more or less 90% of the times telling us that somewhere a recovery is impacted, and that needs to be correlated with other factors such as stress, fatigue, soreness, etc.
Absolutely. So your heart rate, your resting heart rate will spike if there is a physical stress or even a mental stress onto you. This you'll see with illnesses in kids as well. So when your child is, when the LTAD athlete is not well, if they check their heart rate, resting heart rate, then they will notice a spike. And it kind of helps them correlate these spikes as well. Like, okay, I'm not well, my body is responding to this by increasing the heart rate. And if something similar happens after a couple of heavy bouts of training, then the athlete themselves knows, okay, this is time to step back, take it easy a little bit, let my body recover from this. When they move towards more elite levels, there's not much resistance in whatever the new technology is that they have to go through or wear.
I think that's a very important point. I think we've seen in our experience that younger athletes take to these habits much more quickly. When you're a senior athlete, you have your own set of routines, and it's very difficult to incorporate it then. I mean, it still can be done because it's useful. Going on to slightly more senior athletes, starting, let's say, 12 plus, 15 plus, and then going on to the pre-elite and elite levels, how could this habit of measuring your resting heart rate when you wake up, how can they progress it for using it further towards performance?
I mean, so currently, athletes could just strap on a chest strap heart rate monitor. These are currently the most accurate heart rate monitors there are, and you have a bunch of apps on your phone that will check your heart rate variability and give you a readiness. It just gives an athlete an idea of one of the aspects of recovery, and it can't be solely relied on. So you want to couple that with other aspects, maybe a central nervous system recovery, which can be done using a jump mat and drop jumps, counter movement jumps, or maybe checking your grip strength. The biggest application going forward I see in heart rate monitoring is monitoring recovery. Of course, we can still use them for a traditional targeted heart rate zones and measuring heart rate max. But moving forward, I think this is where the heart rate monitoring is going to go.
The high performance habit we covered in March, which was about workload and recovery, and I think the overall point we are trying to make is that having the awareness of your recovery levels is very, very important, no matter at what level of an athlete you are, and measuring your resting heart rate and then heart rate variability is something which will help you. And other factors, what are the other factors which athletes need to be cognizant of? Because I think once they start becoming aware of these factors, I think intuitively also they know sometimes that even if 3 out of 8 parameters are showing that they are not recovered enough, and majority of parameters are showing that recovery is still happening, intuitively they can make a decision for themselves. I think it's about decision making. So what are the other factors?
Absolutely. So there are ways of checking recovery in a big lab setting. You could check cortisol levels, you could check testosterone levels, you can have these swabs. But practical application, is a simple checklist sometimes. Am I drinking enough fluids? Am I getting enough sleep? Do I feel fatigued? How do I feel? Do I feel strong is probably the better question to ask. We've got different tools to check your isometric strength or power through using jumps or grips. These are probably right up there. There's also, you can also maintain acute chronic workload ratio sheet, have an idea of how much workload is going through, and maybe RPEs over time will give you an idea of how much you're doing, and you could correlate that with the overall tiredness. I think those are some of the things that you could use HRV with.
I think you make an excellent point there, that one is being aware about where your recovery is, and the other is what is that which is in your control, which you can do on a daily basis when you know whether you've recovered enough or not. So I think that is the second part of it, which goes hand in hand. How to go about, as you mentioned, the hydration or monitoring their workload or sleep, especially when they're traveling. I think travel and heart rate variability is also some interesting research is coming up on how athletes can manage their travel and the sleep. So I think these are things which we have to look forward to. What is the future for heart rate monitoring, and where do you see the research or the work going so that it can help athletes in recovery and performance?
Future, it doesn't seem very distant. You already have so many different variables. People are working on patches to check sweat rate, exactly how many.
You've got the vests also, which cover almost all the parameters.
Every parameter. People have rings now that will check everything while you sleep as well. You have your complete medical history instantly on your smartphones. So there's no real limit to where this kind of monitoring will. Any limit that monitoring has, and future research, we're going to get more idea about heart rate variability.
I think what a dream product or a dream monitoring tool to look forward to would be something which is light, small, non-invasive, is very accurate no matter where you wear it, and is able to give you a whole loads of information.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, the athlete needs to understand them and use them in a practical manner, and so should the coaches and the trainers who are working with the athlete. And the team also needs to understand how each individual athlete works. Someone's sleep patterns may be a little off based on the device, but if you're measuring a certain trend, it could give us some other inputs also.
Absolutely. With everyone developing new products, I suppose they should put aside some amount for educating the people who will be using it, especially coaches and athletes as well. So that'll be a good future product.